There's, visual evidence, photographic evidence, video evidence, radar evidence, whatever the hell it is. It moves in a way that would turn a human being into jello if they're inside of it. The G-force, no one would survive.
I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
Earlier this week, U.S. Congress discussed unidentified anomalous phenomena, also known as UFOs. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but I just got to say, we're in a really weird timeline where I get to open a video that way. What we're going to do in this video is play a few highlights from what just took place in Congress earlier this week. Then I have a conversation that I had recently with Joseph Jordan, who's the national director of MUFON South Korea, and he provides a layer of research that he's conducted over a 30-year period that I think unlocks some of the mystery in this. Let's do it.
In our previous panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences. Blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is it's an older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So I guess, would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen, and we now know that's not true. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in oxygen environments that lack oxygen. And also same with photosynthesis. When I was in college, I was told everything is derived from photosynthesis as a form of energy. In reality, that's not true. There are things that live off of chemosynthesis. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our understanding of what the definition of life is.
They're having to reevaluate what their understanding of the definition of life is a very interesting first point. The second, that they're raising this question of interdimensionality as opposed to just interplanetary, is also a very important point. Then the third point that I think is very interesting here is that the question of, are these living crafts, is being raised. So let's continue to follow this trail of breadcrumbs where it leads. Here's the next clip.
To your knowledge, any communication with a non-human life form?
So the term communication is a bit of a trick word, because there's verbal communication like we're having now. The problem is you also have nonverbal communication. And so I would say definitively yes, but from a nonverbal meaning, when a Russian reconnaissance aircraft comes into U.S. airspace, we scramble 2 F-22s, and we are certainly communicating intent and capability. I think the same goes with this. We have these things that are being observed over controlled U.S. airspace, and they're not really doing a good job hiding themselves. They're making it pretty obvious they have the ability to even interfere with our nuclear equities and our nuclear readiness.
This ties into another thing that was alleged in Congress. This is a 20-second clip. Watch this.
At one point, you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity, and I got
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay, yeah. So there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing.
Very disturbing is something, it's a thread I want us to follow, like I said. Now, you might remember a few months ago, I think it was 7 months ago, when Tucker Carlson, of all people, went on the Joe Rogan Experience. And this was an observation that he made that I think is interesting. This got my mind thinking about all of this in a different capacity. And this is going to basically lead into the portion of the interview that I conducted with Joseph Jordan. So let's play this out. This is about a, I don't know, minute or so clip. I interrupt this video with an exciting announcement. We now have a website. We have merch that I designed myself, and we're offering a huge discount on the Wisdom Society. Some of you guys have been asking about the new hat. Is it available? Yes, it is. So are the shirts. So is the hoodie. But the best part is this. You get 15% off everything in the store by joining the Wisdom Society. And we're making the Wisdom Society 30% off between now and the end of the year because I really, really want you guys to join. I want to pull you over the line. I want you to be a part of this because the conversations have been amazing. The book club with special guests like Stephen Meyer has been amazing. Become a premium member today, sign up for the year, get the 30% off, and get a free Wisdom Society members mug. Go to dailydoseofwisdom.com for more details. I hope to see you guys there. Now back to the video.
Okay, so the template that you're using to understand this is like science fiction, right? These are an advanced race of beings from somewhere else. But the template that every other society before us has used is a spiritual one. Mm-hmm. There is a whole world that we can't see that acts on people, a supernatural world that's acting on us all the time for good and bad. Once you discard your very, very recent assumptions, relatively speaking, about how the world works, you're like, well, that kind of seems like the obvious explanation, right?
Now, a clue, a missing piece within this entire question that is so important.
I just wasn't seeing anything that was actually proving that we had something that was visiting us from other worlds. It was sketchy at best. And remember, this is back in the early 90s. As I had my monthly meetings for MUFON, which I was required to do as a state section director, I had a lot of people coming to the meetings, a lot of interesting stories to hear from them. Sighting reports, abduction experiences, contact experiences. And I got to tell you, the ones that interested us the most were the abduction experiences. The reason is, I say that because listening to somebody that said that they had actually had contact, even face-to-face, with these entities behind the UFOs that we were chasing as field investigators, to me, that tells me that they're the front line of this phenomenon. And if we were going to find answers to this phenomenon, it was going to be with the abduction experience, not with the UFO experience. So our focus went deeper into the abduction research. As a group of researchers or field investigators I had working with me, we decided that was going to be our focus. So we took it and focused in that direction, started interviewing these abduction researchers or abduction experiencers, trying to get their stories, looking for the same thing that the leading abduction researchers in the world were doing, trying to find answers to the important questions. Could this experience be stopped? Why is it happening to certain people? Those are the key questions that all of the researchers were looking for answers for. As I started exploring the abduction research, I started to realize that there was something else going on amongst them that I wasn't understanding. And as I started to focus in and listening to their conversations between themselves at our meetings, I realized that they were looking for help to these horrific experiences that they were having. And they were looking for it in avenues I was unfamiliar with. And those avenues were into the New Age metaphysical realm. It seemed to be that there were people in that realm that were offering types of help, all crazy types of help, for these people to stop their experiences. But none of them were really helping. But it was at least somebody out there was trying to help these people. They thought that we at MUFON could help them, but we couldn't. We didn't have answers for this. We were relying on them for the answers to what this was about. So as I focused more on the abduction experience, I had to check on what this was they were offering from the New Age realm. As I did, it sucked me in hook, line, and sinker. I didn't realize at the time that I myself was missing something in my life. And this New Age metaphysical realm was offering something that sounded tangible, but I wasn't sure that it really was. But it was very seductive in nature. It was like I could have my spirituality, but the only difference is from Christianity or any of the other belief systems is without accountability. And to me, you know, as somebody that had come from nowhere in religion, that was an enticement, let's sort of say. I could have the best of both worlds. So as I explored the New Age metaphysical realm, um, I started opening up to other areas that I could look at this phenomenon from. So initially, when I started out, my perspective on the UFO phenomenon was as an agnostic humanist. But here I've had an opportunity now to look at it from another perspective. And that perspective is from the New Age metaphysical realm. And it's definitely a different perspective to view things from. I spent about 4 years in that New Age metaphysical realm as a New Age practitioner myself, but I still wasn't getting answers to what this phenomenon was or answers to the two big questions. Why was this happening to certain people, and could it be stopped? It was in 1996, the end of the year there. We had a very busy year between work and overtime at work and the research that we've been working on, a lot of case studies that we were doing. I was getting pretty exhausted. I had a girlfriend at the time that was helping me in this research. And what was interesting about our relationship is here I was a New Age practitioner, and here she was a professing Christian. We agreed that we'd get along fine as long as we didn't talk about politics and religion, which we kept that aside. But it was a one point in that year, at the end of the year, when she saw that I was getting pretty exhausted, and especially with a couple of cases that I had been working with. And she's pulled me aside and she says, you know, I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned that you need protection in this realm. I don't feel that this realm is what you think it is. And I think there's something very dark here that you should protect yourself from, and you don't have that protection. And I said, sure, I do. And I pulled out my crystals and I showed her and I said, you know, this one helps me here, this one helps me there. And she says, no, no. She says, it's something far beyond that you really need. And I said, so what are you offering here? And she grabs a Bible and she hands it to me and she says, it's in here. And I said, no, we agreed not to go there in this relationship. And she said, you know, you tell people you're the most open-minded, objective investigator out there. I said, yeah, I do. And she says, so you'll take a look at this, right? Now, well, you know, I just been had. You don't tell the girlfriend, no, you're not going to look at it. So I said, all right, I give you a few minutes. Show me what you got. What was amazing was in that about 15, 20 minutes that she shared with me, this gospel message from this Bible was probably one of the most profound moments in my life. I had heard the gospel message growing up as a child with my parents in church, but didn't accept it. But the way she presented it to me in that few moments opened my eyes and opened my ears. And it was just amazing to feel the relief that had come off of me in that particular moment. Something was definitely changing in me. And I realized that this was what protection that I needed. And I told her, I said, I need that protection. That is what I want. And right then and there, I gave my life to Jesus Christ in November 1996. Well, now I'm a Christian, but I'm still a UFO researcher. And at the time, I didn't understand that there might be something that was contrary to being a Christian as a UFO researcher, but I wasn't sure what it was. But I wanted to know more about being a Christian. And because I didn't know what a Christian was, actually. I knew I had done what Christians do and gave their life to Jesus Christ. But who is this Jesus? How can I know more about him? And as a researcher and an inquisitive guy, I decided to delve into that research and learn more about Christianity and the Bible. And I did. And I spent some time doing that. And it was during that time that the Lord showed me that what I've been working with in this UFO realm was not what it appeared to be. And I thought, wow, what do I do with this? Do I put this away and not do it anymore? And I talked to my fellow researchers and I said, you know, I don't think what we're dealing with here is what we thought it was. And I think we probably shouldn't even be messing with this as Christians. And they agreed. So we decided to put this away. But I kept getting this nagging voice that would tell me, you're not done yet, you know? And I'm going, yeah, I'm put this away. This is not good for us. And then that voice had told me, you need to take this finding back to where you came from. Take this truth back to where you came from. And I thought, I can't do that. I can't take the Bible back to this new age UFO realm. They don't believe it to be the inerrant word of God. I said, you got to give me something better than that. And that's when things really changed. We were in the middle of looking at some of the case histories that we had recorded with abduction experiences. And there was one particular one that we were looking at the time. And we had recorded this gentleman 6 months prior. And as we're sitting there watching the video again of the interview we did with him, we heard something that we didn't remember hearing as we sat there and recorded it right in front of him 6 months prior. Because what he was stating was that during this experience that he had, an abduction type experience, a very horrific experience for him, he cries out in the middle of this experience, Jesus, Jesus, help me, or Jesus, help me. And he, in an instant, he's not in the experience anymore, and he feels like he's being slammed down on the bed. Well, we listened to that, and I looked at my partner at the time, one of my researchers that I was working with, and I said, do you remember this? And he says, I don't remember it either. And so we had to look at this real close, because if this was a true event that he's telling us, he's done something that the other leading researchers in the world are saying that's not possible. It's not possible to stop an experience. But yet this guy's telling us he just stopped an experience. And what was interesting is the way he stopped the experience. Well, I couldn't go any farther with this unless I verified that what he was telling us was a true event. Was there anything else like it out there in UFO research, abduction research? I don't know. I had to contact the leading researchers in the realm and talk to them, which I did. And I told them, guys, I got this strange case. I'd just like a little help on it, a little better understanding. What am I dealing with here? As I shared the case with these leading researchers by phone, each of them asked me after I shared it, can we go off the record? And I said, sure, we can go off the record. I said, just help me here on what I have. And they said, well, we've actually come across cases like this in our research. And I said, like what? And they said, well, we've come across cases where people have sung a Christian hymn, hummed a hymn, quoted prayer or scripture, called to Jesus, and these experiences stopped. And I said, wait a minute, all of you guys say that there's no way to stop these experiences. But now you're telling me that it is stoppable through this type of method. And they said, yes. And I said, well, my next question is, why have you never shared this information? And the answer I got from most of them was, we didn't know what to make of it. That's an honest answer. They actually, something they didn't understand. But I don't know if it was their conscience or what, or feeling guilty, but they always followed it with another answer, like the first one wasn't enough. And that answer they followed with was, we were afraid to go there because it might affect our credibility in the UFO research community. And I thought, okay, now we're getting to what the problem is. So I told these guys, I said, look, I work for a living. I'm not talking at conferences, selling merchandise and everything. I don't rely on this as a way of life. I have no problem putting this information out there. I said, you told me there's other cases like this. I'm going to go find these cases. I'm going to document these cases, and I'm going to make sure this piece of the puzzle gets brought to the table. All of them said, please do, because we can. So that is when we formed CE4 Research Group, to be able to gather this information and be able to make it presentable to peer review out there over the next couple of decades. I knew I couldn't continue to do it as MUFON, because MUFON really wasn't set up at the time to investigate abductions. So that's why we set up the separate entity CE4 research group. So that's where our focus started. And that's what we've been doing for over close to 25 years now, is we've gone after these type of cases where people have wanted to share the information, but nobody's listening to it and nobody's doing anything with it. It's been the missing piece of the UFO puzzle for 30 years that I know of. We were the first ones to bring it forward. The first case was Bill D's case, the gentleman that said he had, stopped the experience calling out the name of Jesus. But from there, over the past 25 years, I've worked with well over 600 cases. I quit counting a couple of years ago. Wasn't important. They just still coming in. The recent piece that you just did, that's out there with 700 views, 700,000 views right now. If you look in the comments, there's many testimonies in that comment. So people that have never heard this before that are now coming forward and saying, I've done just that, but there's nobody to talk to. Well, we've been that group to talk to. We've been available to take those testimonies, because what I want to do here is be able to show that this is not just one single event that stands out strange. There are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of testimonies out there to show you that this name and authority of Jesus Christ can stop this experience. And the other researchers in this realm know this.
By the way, if you're interested, there's a lot more to this conversation coming soon on the Daily Dose of Wisdom podcast episode that I did with Joseph Jordan. He goes into more in depth about his backstory, about the research findings that they've had over the last 25 to 30 years. And he also goes into what he thinks may be coming next. So subscribe if you aren't already so that you don't miss that upload. And again, check out dailydoseofwisdom.com to see the merch, to see the website itself, and to learn exactly what you can expect inside of the Wisdom Society. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video.